Hi, this is Tom, negotiating with Jesus. And I'm going to try and record a video again. This is my third try. My dad is living with me. So that was the end of my third stage of a life of disasters. Cycling through disasters and in some way everything falling apart and then being reconstructed. Today I'm going to do deconstruction. So I've tried to do this video. This is the third try, and my dad keeps calling me. So today, my dad is 87. He lost my mom, his wife, in 21. So he's been living with me for 3 years. And I'm not excited about it at all. I'm the good son who's kind of trying to take care of dad, and it's just really not my favorite. So he fell this morning. And that's a whole ordeal. And now he feels like there's too much pain for him to do the things in independent living that he needs to do to stay in this residence. Somewhat independent living. So every single thing in these videos, and I think the reason Paul has this great channel is the randos, because people have stories that just are so rich and so many twists and turns. And you hear a story and it really is, it might be 40 years or 50 years condensed into a 1-hour talk, and that can't possibly be the truth about the life. So when I talked to Paul, this video that's coming out, I tried to get to the idea of story. That our stories, we think stories are Lord of the Rings, which is a condensation of 10 or 15 lives into so Lord of the Rings, you go through it, maybe it's a 20 or 30 hour read, 20-hour read, 20 hours of commentary on lives. So we think stories are these highlights, but stories are these long drawn-out affairs where there are people who will never be mentioned. So I think what Paul's doing is allowing the people who will never be mentioned as heroes of the world to get a chance to be a little candle, a little light. Because my suspicion is that our stories are all wrong because we only look at these giant flamethrowers like Peterson. And he looks like the brightest light in the sky. He's the sun, and he's not. These stars that guide us, I think they're stars for an age of decay. And what I'm trying to get at is the little corner filled with people are the ones who are moving the world. But we only notice the real standouts that seem to be moving the world. So is Peterson moving the world, or is this little corner moving the world? And I suspect that, like the disciples following Jesus, we don't understand what the author is really doing with the stories. And in some ways, these superstars get attention, but I think your effort, your work on the ground as a foot soldier is more important. But I can't quite sort that out. It doesn't seem right because we're so planted in this world that we think you have to be really good to be really useful. And then we develop a hierarchy. And there's a lot of people who aren't good enough. And it's Jesus coming to the least, last, and lost. That he wants the weak to use the weak to in some way dismay the strong. In his weakness we are made strong. And this thing that weakness can't be valuable, and yet the gospel is going to switch things around. So anyway, I'm going to do my deconstruction, and I just want to quickly go over the idea that so you keep giving testimony, you keep revealing little facets of the jewel that is your life. And it's a long, hard, and dull stories. So if you followed Frodo, what they leave out is Frodo, day after day, ate and went to the bathroom and, walked for hours. But you can't tell the story of Frodo walking for hours. You have to tell the story of that. You have to condense into that. He walked for hours and then he was in front of a dragon or something. And then he walked for hours and went to the bathroom and ate a meal and slept. And then he was in front of a goblin or whatever. You have to throw away most of a life to make it interesting to people who, for the life of them, they can't take this combinatorial explosiveness in. You have to try and condense it because they don't have the time or the energy to care about the details. And in some way, the heavenly realm, the age to come, will be able to listen to a more beautiful story because we'll have time and we'll have compassion that is overwhelming. It'll be a change. We have to change. Anyway, I just hit my own arm. This handheld video's got to go at some point. So I'm starting, but I haven't finished. I want to do some, get a studio going over in the next room. My deconstruction. So for me, my construction was a kid growing up I was born in Holland, Michigan, in the Paul Vanderklay sphere. And I was not CRC. I don't know what I was because I was a baby. And then I moved to Indiana probably when I was 2. I think all 3 of the kids in my family were born in Holland. And then we moved to Chesterton, Indiana, right across the border near Gary at the bottom of Lake Michigan. But we were all born, and my family is from the Grand Rapids area where the CRC does all its dirty business. Whatever. You can watch Paul and find out videos about what CRC is up to. Holland, Michigan, so the land of tulips and windmills, wooden shoes. Paul has been talking about burn these wooden shoes. We've got to burn the wooden shoes. Well, in tulip time, they would have klompen dancers, and my cousin would dress in a Dutch outfit, and they would do parades and tulips and windmills in Holland, Michigan. So that was my hometown. Raised in Chesterton, then moved to Pennsylvania when I was 14, or just about 14. And then I had this drug experience. So drugs, hallucinogenics, these different things that put you into a space where spirits can capture you. Exorcism. Paul just talked about that a little bit. So that's my story. As I moved here and I got caught up in drugs, and that's the big part of my story. Now there's all these things that you can't tell your whole story. I was talking to a guy last night, and I thought that I was my youth ministry work, because Paintball for Jesus, that's been my life for 25, 30 years, because I wanted to be in kids' lives, trying to show them that there's a person that they can look up to or whatever. And I don't hold myself up very high, but youth ministry and children's ministry has been important. And I think I'm doing penance. This was a thought that came last night when I was talking. Maybe I'm doing penance for the kids that I led astray when I was a kid. So as a 15-year-old, start getting into marijuana, and then moving on to speed, and moving on to coke, and all the good things except heroin. You don't want to get into heroin because then you're too committed. Once you start injecting that into your arm, it's too big a commitment, and the drug is, I think, too satisfying. It actually takes everything from you. So I was a functional drug user, so that means I didn't do heroin. Kids, that seems like the one all of them I think you steer clear from. But that one, when I worked at a drug rehab, there were 20-year-olds and 50-year-olds who were still struggling with heroin. So that's a lifetime commitment. Heroin is a lifetime commitment. Just like AA and Chad doing, hello, my name is Chad, I'm an alcoholic. And maybe 10 years after not touching a drop, saying the same thing. And I would go to NA, it would be Narcotics Anonymous, and I'd be, hi, my name is Tom. I'm an addict. I don't know what they say at NA. I used to take guys to meetings, but. So my construction, my world was a world of the unchurched. And even if Tom Holland says it's a Christian world, it's a nominal Christian world where we say it and it influences us and we believe what Jesus taught, but it wasn't embodied. Remember, embody. Sorry if I'm stealing your stuff, Graham, but I had to tell my dad about you today. And this world is so strange. Yes. So my construction is a person who wasn't standing on a foundation. In the Enlightenment, when the very foundation of the world is pulled away, which seems to be the rock on which my church will be built, this idea that Jesus is going to point to the very foundation of the world. It's the law and the lawgiver, the nature and nature's God, the creator God. It's the one who's at the bottom and at the top, and it scales all the way. So I didn't have this foundation. So I'm growing up, didn't believe anybody about anything. I didn't think school was important. I just wanted to be me. And I talk too much, and I'm a bit of a goof off. And I can do tasks like I built that shed I showed you yesterday if you watched. And it was a long, hard project. And I kept at it, and I still have a little bit of touch-up to do to it, which I'll do this summer as I move to my next brutal project. So deconstruction. So I'm constructed now as a kid who was a reader. So instead of when I get to 9th, 10th grade, especially my junior and senior years in high school, I became a reader. So I loved Vonnegut. I loved Asimov, Heinlein, however you say his name, Heinlein, science fiction. But I loved to read, and I was pretty tired of doing schoolwork and using weed, smoking weed, marijuana. It is a demotivational tool, and I'm not motivated, really highly motivated, just as a personality trait. I'm not someone who wants to build a kingdom. I just enjoy too many things too much. I just love everything, so I'm not an expert at anything. And I'm not driven to become a gymnast or a rock star or the president or start my own corporation or anything. I just love life, and I love running into people, and I love looking at butterflies and watching Paul Vanderklay videos, and so my construction was kind of foundationless. And the Foundation trilogy by Asimov is pretty good, so check that out. No foundation. The foundation that the Enlightenment brought was that you get to be your own God. It was the conclusion of the Garden Agreement that the serpent convinced us of, and I'm convinced that everybody is totally dedicated to the idea that if we eat the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, we take a bite of that apple. And the serpent says, you will be like God, knowing good and evil. Therefore, you get to decide what in the world is good and right and true. And that's where we're at right now, in this total confusion where everybody's saying what I say is right. And the common agreement that there's that what we all say is not right, and there's a lawgiver, someone who's right above us, and that we can submit to a king. Right now, there was no king, so everybody in the land was their own king. So that's the garden agreement that I'll talk about often if I continue to do videos. Deconstruction is this. Right now, everybody is talking about deconstruction as if they have grown up Christian, but not deep in their heart, some kind of structure that they were forced into, and then they kind of break their way out. Deconstruction. Well, everybody's forced into a structure anyway. My deconstruction is the deconstruction I think is about to happen. And it's the deconstruction of the Enlightenment world where we have no foundation, no king, no good king. What happened to me was I was involved with drugs and just a wandering life, no goals, nothing to look forward to. Lost, the combinatorial explosiveness makes it hard to pick a course. If you're going through a field, you gotta just start walking. So I was more wandering in the wilderness. My deconstruction was when I heard about this Jesus character, and I'm starting to think that my life is a mess. I did not seem to be a good ruler. And it's that revelation that if everyone would have it, that I'm not my own best ruler. And it's the Peterson thing that we don't see ourselves well. And it's the Socratic idea that his great genius was, I know that I don't know. That's the revelation, that if you have it, then you stop trusting your own wisdom and start thinking there's got to be someone wiser. And maybe you find a guru, maybe you climb the top of a mountain and there's some guru sitting there who's going to tell you what to do. And maybe it's Raveki, or maybe it's Peterson or Vanderklay or Grimm or somebody else. I want to say Mark and Navigating Patterns. I want to mention him. Or Jacob in his channel. So the idea that I know that I don't know, and then you stumble upon someone and you think, and it was Peterson, that's why we're all here, sort of, and you're thinking, he seems to be onto something. And if you would read Chesterton, G.K. Chesterton, you listen to a guy who talks like he's onto something and convinces you that whatever track you were on, it wasn't the right track, and you start deconstructing and then reconstructing, rebuilding, building your life. So my life was a mess, and I had to deconstruct the world's hold on me. I had to deconstruct my own hold on me, that I knew, or that I was the best king for me. And we all have to be kind of our own kings, and it's the whole state of the world. Everybody's their own king. So my deconstruction was my world needed to be torn down. So I stumbled across the good king. And this is the Christian story as it's supposed to be, is that you die, and then you're reborn into a new world. So the world where all the people in the world were all telling their truth, and it's a cacophony of voices, and there's no discernible message. They're all just like you and me, and it's not clear at all that they know what they're talking about. And then this Jesus character comes along, and I'm like, man, this one seems like the king that can stand scrutiny. I don't think other people can stand scrutiny. I think at some point they have to, if they're as wise as Socrates, say, I don't know what to do to save you. And maybe you're dying of cancer. Maybe you're Tammy and you have cancer and you need a miracle because we can't save you. You need the author of life to save you. We all get to that point where we have to have the author of life save us. So that's what happened to me. My deconstruction is the deconstruction I think the world is about to go through, where, and it's modernity, whatever Paul is talking about, it's all failing, and we're all looking around kind of in horror that the world we thought was stable isn't stable at all. And the leaders of the greatest nation that there ever was, perhaps, maybe you're, from some other country and would dispute that U.S. is some great nation, but the most powerful nation, that the leader of the most powerful nation is going to be Trump or Biden. So Paul talked just for a second about that choice, that the whole world has gone mad. It might have always been mad, and now the curtain's being pulled back. And we're like, oh, dang, that's not good. So my deconstruction is that my world collapsed, and then a new world, I was born again in some way. The idea that you're now brought into a new kingdom with a better king. So negotiating with Jesus, my channel is going to be about a couple things. It's going to be this little corner talk, thinky-talky stuff, but also my real life in which I preach as just a regular guy. How did I ever get this kind of life? I want to do music, mystery, and meaning. Is what I wrote an email to Chad and asked if I could get on his show. So that's coming up in July. So music is going to be a thing as I live this last quarter of my life. I'm going to try and focus like a laser. My laser eyes are just barely, they're the smallest candle flickering in the distance. I do not have laser-like attention. But I'm going to do some music instruction, and just for the average person who wants to get some poetry, some songwriting, some music. I'm going to do some music stuff. So now I have to go practice my songs. And I'll give you another video another time. Tom out.